First of all, I'm going to steal Jennifer Lawrence from you one day, you jerk. Jesus.
She's up for stealing. She's a young girl. She's going to work with a lot of people. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. Like an old professor.
You know, I thought about trying to memorize this. I had to put a couple thoughts down. I want to start it off this way. This is the fourth in a trilogy of absolutely superb and beautiful films by a master director at the peak of his powers. And I think the title Joy is really appropriate in that it is clearly with joy that you make all your films. Joy not just with the filmmaking process, but joy with the messiness of life, joy at the crazy forces, both internal and external, that run our lives, joy at observing the discrepancy between our intentions and our actions, and joy at seeing the strange cast of characters whom we are flung together with at different points in our lives. And I want to extend this even farther, if you'll stay with me for a second, that, because now you've made 4 heavy hitter pictures in a row in this period of your career, and the titles culminating in this one, I think, are very telling about what it is to be a filmmaker. The Fighter, now we have to fight, and how you fought your way back from certain challenges you had had in life, and Silver Linings Playbook, how we are constantly seeing how bad things turn into good things. American Hustle, stay with me. American Hustle, how we have to wear the cloak of a con man at certain times, even conning ourselves into doing certain things. But all of it for joy and with joy. And I often define filmmaking as clawing our way through a huge pile of shit in order to emerge on the other side and catch a butterfly. Wow, thanks. I got a million of them. So let me be, this is your first interview about the picture, right? Oh, thank God. So I get to be the first one to ask you the question that's going to soon drive you crazy. How did this project come to you, and why did you choose it?
First, I want to thank you for your sincerity and for your words, which mean the world to me. And I feel the same about your work. And I'd like to make a poem now about the titles of all of your movies. Election, well, Citizen Ruth. I could do it. Thank you. I mean, it means everything to me. I could just go home right now. I could. That's it, pretty much. The movie, and then this guy, and that's it. The film, Jennifer and I have a very respectful friendship that has a good amount of fear in it. Dustin Hoffman once told me, you must fear your woman or your partner. I think that's a healthy form of love and respect, because then you're careful. You're careful then.
That mean in our relationships and our professional lives?
Also at home. Yeah. I think he meant at home. I mean, so, and I think that means you are careful. You treat it with care. In a good way. You treat it with respect. So I was writing something for her and for some others, and it was a big, ambitious thing. And then I like when unexpected things happen.
You mean you're writing something else?
Yes. Okay. And it was said, would you like, I knew that starting with The Fighter, women had become increasingly important in each film. Women were the key to The Fighter for me. And they just kept, and I knew eventually I was going to have to make a picture with a woman at the center of it. And this came to me from Elizabeth Gabler at Fox 2000, and your friend, the Greek brother, Jim Giannopoulos. And I said, well, Jennifer loved it. They said she'd like to do it with you. And she said to me, can David do what he wants with it? And I said, okay, let's see what we want to do with this. And so then I said, I would like to make this about the psyche of a 10-year-old girl and see what happens to her life. And when I spoke to the actual Joy, she was a very forgiving, big-hearted person, which I also happen to like. Anyway, so.
Your toehold being the psyche of a 10-year-old girl, was that somehow inherent in the material you inherited, or did you bring that?
I brought it. I mean, I inherited a script by the very talented Annie Mumalo, who very graciously and respectfully acknowledged that I had completed something completely different that bore very little resemblance to what she had written. So I had the sole screenplay credit. I wanted that, but I also asked the actual Joy, who I had many hours of conversations with, a lot of questions about her childhood. She said she felt like she was in analysis with me. And she's used to just being asked questions about her success, and I wanted to know all the weird facts about her life that I seized upon and I loved. And that's what makes somebody who they are. We're all rooted in who surrounded us and who we loved and who we had struggles with. That's what makes us where we come from. And that grounds us and that creates us, yeah.
And who is she? Where does she live? How old is she now? Like, I assume this is pretty much her story with your artistic liberties, but tell us about her.
Well, I'd say it's about 50% based on her and 50% based on other women that have inspired me. She lives in Long Island. She grew up in her father ran a metal garage that had all the school bus routes. I thought of Long Island as looked like Wisconsin in the 60s because parts of Long Island were like that. So that was the America, kind of Edward Hopper's America that we were interested in filming, Lena Sandgren and myself. Her mother was a recluse, a very gentle character who retreated from the world, but found powerful women on television. That became a portal that we got very excited about, Jennifer and myself.
That came from your interviews with Joy, with the real Joy.
Yes. And then we started watching the soap operas, Jennifer and I. I started with one called The Secret Storm, which it turns out that Diane Ladd and Donna Mills were actually in.
Wow.
It's in black and white, and it's fantastic, and it's beautiful. And, soap actors are like amazing actors. They do 100 pages a day. Right. They are fearless. And, Jennifer and I took a shine to Maurice Bernard and Laura Wright from General Hospital, and she would call me and say, please come over and watch this episode of General Hospital right now. I think I think maybe we should work with these people. And we watched a scene where they were in different jail cells crying, talking to each other for like a half an hour. And we were just mesmerized.
So I saw the picture for the first time only last night. I watched it again tonight. He's been super busy finishing it. We've had only brief conversations about it on the phone. But you made it very clear that you wanted to talk about, and I want to ask you about, you had certain cinematic intentions with this film, things which you had never tried before in your films, and obviously these would be formal concerns, but not formal for formal's sake, but rather formalist concerns related to the content of the film and the character, and also maybe to things which would be the best form for you to express things inside of you at this point in your life. So can you talk about some of the cinematic language you were striving for with this?
Thanks for that question. Yes, we wanted to do a lifespan. I'd never done that. I wanted to begin. Suddenly, I'm auditioning child actors, and that's a whole story unto itself. And I would get to audition them by having them audition me. I would get them to be comfortable, as I've done with many actors, by saying, "You tell me what to do." I tell them the scene. I'd get on the floor with the paper figures that were like the ones I had made as a child, and I'd say, "You tell me to do the scene." And these 10-year-old girls would go, "Wow!" And then they tell you what to do, and then you're doing it, and then like any actor, they go, "Okay, that's enough. Now let me do that." So that's great. That's what you want. You want them to go, "You get out of there." So we wanted to.
How often do we want to do that with actors? Would you knock it off and just let me do it? Jesus, can't you do it right?
That works. It works. I did that with Edgar. Edgar Ramirez told a story about, which I had forgotten completely, the day that when they have the divorce. It was wonderful to do. I love these little short movies, which is another cinematic ambition, which we got to do in American Hustle. Playing with time as a question. What is time? As I get older, time is more and more fascinating to me. I remember you telling me that what Francis Coppola said to you. He said when you're young, you look at women, and when you're older, you look at children, and then you get older and you look at trees. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he said when you're young, you just, looking at girls, and then you have kids, and then your kids are just the most fantastic thing in the world, and then your kids leave the house and suddenly you notice trees. Yeah, that's right. Wow. How do you remember that?
Well, because it's about time. And I love how your perspective on life changes with time. So I loved playing with time, and I loved meeting the man who was divorced, who lived in her basement. The details of her life are ordinary, but also extraordinary. And as you've done in your cinema, you can find the sublime. The sublime lives next to the ordinary. They don't exist without each other. That's Dante would tell you that. So, they live together, and that's what makes this world, and that's the beauty. So that man did live in her basement. I had not seen that story before, the best divorced couple in America. I never saw that story. I think it's a beautiful, big-hearted story that they love each other and are friends. The father also lived in the basement and have hated the ex-husband. They hate each other. I like that we met him. I told the story different ways, Alexander, in the screenplay and in the editing room. And I must credit my editors, Jay Cassidy and Alan Baumgarten, our two principal editors, and we got Chris Tellefson and Tom Cross to start out because the other guys weren't available. And that's why we had those editors, because our first two guys weren't available.
Do you want to talk a little bit? Did I interrupt you?
No, I was just going to tell you one other thing.
Okay, yeah, please.
No, but you have a question. Go ahead. Or you don't, go ahead. So time. So the short movie, you see the story of their courtship, their meeting, they're falling in love, their wedding, the father saying, "Don't do it," which happened to the real Joy. Don't do it, as she's going down the aisle. All right, and is he a prick? No, he was right. Okay, so the guy aspired to be Tom Jones. He brought joy into her life at a very important time. I loved filming them in the snow singing together. I had grips coming up to me, which never happened, saying, "Man, that's beautiful," because you could see it right then. We were all kind of like, wow. It's like the school play. It was snowing and they were singing and he had a cape on. And she had a cape on. Then he had a cape on. We're like, no, you take your cape off. Just when you have your cape, all right? And then you hear that, you go that short movie all the way through to the divorce. And this is an actor story, how you can get an actor to do it by doing it. In the middle of having the baby scream and Jennifer saying, "I don't want to do this because the baby's screaming," I go and I'm shouting, "It's perfect that the baby's screaming," because it makes you feel like you kind of want to, you're going to shoot yourself, right? That's how you should feel right now. And then she started to cry. And then I go, "Edgar, yell at her in Spanish, pray." And then I go, "Cry." And Edgar tells a story where he goes, "Cry?" Like in the middle with the camera still rolling. And I go, "Cry." And he says, "Well, I need a moment." I said, "No, just cry. Like fake it. Fake it. It'll start to happen. Fake it. Look at me. Look at me." I go, "Look, Edgar." Brando would teach this. This is what Brando talked about. And he started doing that, and he started crying. For real. If you do that, you will start to cry for real. So the actor will do that, like you said.
I forget which movie. Spencer Tracy makes himself cry in close-up in some movie.
Many movies.
No, where he says, "Well, here, watch me cry," and he just does it right there.
Oh, as part of the movie?
As part of the movie.
Cool.
It might be Adam's Rib.
Oh, I've been watching all those films again right now.
Just real quick, talk about it. What differences did you find out that you made from the screenplay to the final cut? Because the film is a constant discovery, and we've got the blueprint, the script, but then you go into battle and you do the film, and then you're in the cutting room, and that has to be its own thing. So talk about that arc.
Another one of your quotes was very useful to me, my friend, that I quoted many times to my editors.
About the cutting room?
Yeah. You want to say it?
Yeah. Two things about the cutting room. Editing is the ongoing process of disguising how bad the film really is. But what gives you hope is every day you go to the cutting room, you make it suck less.
Oh, you said it better than that.
What?
You said every day the film sucks a little bit less. Yeah. I come home to my wife and everybody, and she's like, "How's it going?" I go, "Well, the film sucks a little bit less."
Yeah, right.
It's just, and if you're not being, and I'm not precious about the editing room. I'm brutal in it. Otherwise, you don't get a good movie. I'd love to. So let me tell you how it changed in the editing room. First, I'm going to tell you 3 other ambitions we did in this movie. One was lifespan. The other was going into her dreams, which we shot these dreams that were wonderful because they didn't have to be literal. They were emotional. They were about feeling trapped and about being told by your younger self that you had wasted 17 years of your life. And as I told you before, that's a metaphor I'd been sitting on I'm old enough now.
The cicada.
The cicada for 40 years.
Great.
Did you have cicadas in Omaha?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I worry about how we're paving over the whole world. I think about the cicadas. They're going to come up and hit their heads.
They won't be able to go on
Think
and
of how
start
many
companies.
cicadas have hit their heads.
They
They're
w-
just going to die. They just died down there.
Yeah, that's going to be bad. And
Already is.
I would hear these. They made this very loud noise, louder than a telephone. I never saw them, and they went underground for this mysterious number of years. And I thought that's a great metaphor. It happened to me. It could happen to anybody. You wake up and you go, "What happened to you, man? Where have you been? How are you going to get back into who you are?" As you always quote, yeah.
This relates to a line of his from I Heart Huckabees, How Am I Not Myself?
Yeah, that was very kindly something you plucked out of that for 10 years ago, which I'm thankful for. So there's the lifetime, there's the dreams, which we loved, and Jennifer, being who she is reading Anna Karenina on the set of Silver Linings Playbook. At the age of 20, I've watched her grow up, Alexander. So I've watched her have to deal with power and her family and having power and handling it with dignity and handling it with grace and being forgiving. I've watched her do that. And when she was 20, this is who this girl, she's reading Anna Karenina on the set. We're about to go into the diner in Silver Linings Playbook, and she's at the very end of the book. And I said, oh, yeah. Has you gotten to the railroad station yet? And she goes, what railroad station? I said, no, that's great. Just keep reading. And she goes, we're outside. It's like 30 degrees. She goes, surely Vronsky's coming back. She says to me, like she's asking me, like if she's going to get to go home that night. Surely, and I look at her and I go, yeah. And she goes, oh my God. And she starts sobbing that Vronsky's not coming back. This is who she is as a human being. So when we walk into the church in the dream, and I have the choir singing, and I love this with Lena Sandgren, who's a beautiful cinematographer from Sweden. I told them how I wanted it to be lit with those shafts of light. And of course they say, it's what always happens. You're going through it now. You're scouting your movie now. And I thank you for coming during your scout. That's hard. So he goes, it is impossible. We don't have the room to light this. And they say this. I go, no, I want an old church, a beautiful church. They go, yeah, but we don't have one of those churches. The one we have, he says, you can't light it. I go, what's wrong with this church? He goes, you can't light it. I go, what do you mean? Just put the thing up here and you have the light coming down. He goes, I can't. I go, I bet you $1,000 you can light that fucking church the way I want you to do it. And by the end of the night, we did it. He did. He hid the thing with mirrors. He bounced a light that went from the floor up to a mirror on the ceiling. He had nowhere to hide. So the shafts came down. That's cool. And then it's very beautiful. And she cries when she walks in. She goes, oh my God. That happened numerous times. And the soap opera was a wonderful world to go into. Those were all ambitions. Using more classic framing, not crazy. How about Jennifer Lawrence not being crazy in my first movie? How about it's our most mature movie where she gets to carry. You got to do it different. I say, she goes, what am I going to do different? Well, you're not going to be loud. You're going to be quiet. You're going to be the unanxious presence in the room.
Yeah, but no less powerful. I would say she even acquires more powerful. Jesus, just her looks. It's all in her eyes. Unbelievable actress. Arguably our greatest movie star right now. Talk about that relation. You have been talking about the relationship, but now, I don't know, William Wyler and Betty Davis, Antonioni and Monica Vitti, Bergman and Bibi Andersson and Liv Ullmann. Now you've made 3 pictures in a row with this gal. What is that relationship? That professional, it's easy to use the word muse or whatever, but you talked about her as though she were a partner in the conception of this film with the soap opera and so forth. So what is that? Talk about that relationship, please. And will it continue until I steal her?
She's been very kind. I think we'll, knock on wood, work together for our whole lives, and that means she must work with many directors, and that should be you. And she should, yes, she's going to ask you, right? Yes, I mean, listen, she's young, so she must do that. As I said, we have great love and respect for each other. It's very special. I just don't think you should talk about it too much. You know what I mean? It's like that's what makes it special. I'll tell you, there are special personal things I've gotten to be part of. I heard she bought her own house, and I saw her with the boxes, like at the end of the movie, and I saw her unpack something from the boxes that she hadn't seen maybe in 20 years, and it was very emotional, and that goes into the movie. And I aspire to write for her, as you said, muse. I aspire to be worthy of her. and she aspires to be worthy of me, and that makes us both reach farther. The same is true of Mr. De Niro, who humbly plays a very complicated man who is lovable, without whom none of it happens, but who also becomes the greatest impediment. That's what happens in life with our friends and family. Bradley Cooper I watch him become a man. He goes from being having a boyish quality in Silver Linings. He acquires a book called American Sniper. The guy gets killed while he acquires the book, the actual character, Chris Kyle. This major film that is traumatizing. He works with Clint Eastwood. The boyhood traces are gone from him. And he has Clint Eastwood in him. And we brought that to this character, a man who would be completely sincere, like all the salesmen my dad worked with, serious as a heart attack about their endeavor, and nothing funny about it. And he's becoming a filmmaker. He will be a director, and he's a smart guy. And so him doing the hair and the details and the thing and handling the spokesmodels, I love that suddenly we were, really deep in this other universe. And of course there's, competitive spokesmodels, and one slamming a door. And, I just loved that. And we got the actual Melissa Rivers to play her mother within 6 months of her mother dying, which is important. And Robert De Niro's daughter, Drina, plays Bradley Cooper's mother. I'm sorry I'm not answering your question. I kind of did about Jennifer. Who cares? Okay. Gloria Cooper. Gloria Cooper said he watched religiously QVC, knew all the spokesmodels by names in Philadelphia. Without her, I didn't create those characters. She knew them by names and told me why she loved them and why she watched them all night. They were her only company all night. When her husband was sick and dying, she'd watch, because this was before the internet. I don't know. So Jennifer and I we share a sense of humor. I would say also with Robert and Bradley, and now Isabella. You have this great
Who's phenomenal in the film.
Thank you. Go with but Isabella and Diane Ladd, the mighty Diane Ladd. Who this man worked with. I mean, have you worked with Diane or just her daughter?
She has an unbilled cameo in Citizen Ruth.
Because her daughter you're very close to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she is the unanxious presence in the room. And that's a term I've been waiting to use since I saw my college roommate at 40 decided to become a rabbi. To my shock, he was a scrap metal dealer. He was in his family's scrap metal business in Buffalo. And I said, okay. And so suddenly, and he had to, his life, he had to go back to the yeshiva and all this. But I realized, he kind of always was kind of a rabbi, like a sincere, good guy. And at his ordination, I see the guy say, John, are you ready to be here to do this, to do this, to do this? And the fourth thing he says is, are you ready to be the unanxious presence in the room? And I never forgot those words. And I thought, my God, that's his job. What is that? And that's what a matriarch is. That's what a family center is. It's a beautiful thing. And I got to watch Jennifer own that a little bit.
How many shooting days?
42? Are you kidding me? 42?
Nicely done, sir.
What a killer. Oh, man.
All in, this was in Boston?
Yeah. In the coldest, thank you, sir. The coldest winter in Boston, 11 feet of snow, where everybody got sick, which Jennifer uses. Jennifer is, during her love romance scene with Edgar, is violently ill between takes. That means I'm going to sit here, I'm going to look in your eyes, I'm going to fall in love with you, I'm going to be white as a sheet, and then I'm going to, in between takes, I'm going to go right out this door, and you're going to hear me heaving. Then I'm going to come back, I'm going to do another take. But the thing about being sick is it makes you regress. It makes you younger. So she became younger and younger the more vulnerable she became with her illness, and she used it. And by the end of the shoot, she had become so tired from carrying a movie on her emotions, which she hadn't done. She'd come in from the side in the other movies. This one, she was the pillar, and it took a lot out of her. That she sat different. She sat like somebody maybe closer to our age. She didn't sit like. And at the same time, she could play with these kids on the set like she was one of them, these little girl actors. So then,
she can play any age. I don't know how else to say it. She can play any age. 3 quick questions from the audience. Ma'am, hello.
question is, did Jennifer make the big heart of this character easier for me? And the question is yes, because Jennifer has a very big heart and a very big soul. We sat because Robert De Niro said, I want to meet the real people. I had still not met Joy yet. All right, so we're in pre-production. So we sit down with Joy, her very beautiful daughter who runs her company, her father who works for her, the real Rudy. And the first thing Rudy says to me and De Niro and Jennifer is, when I invented the mop. And we all look over at Joy to see, like, it's like we're on the Jerry Springer show, right? Is she gonna go for his eyes, And she just like, it's like Michael Corleone. She just goes. I mean, she is a loving, forgiving woman. I mean, her father sued her, man, and lost because he was wrong. And she's like, all right, you want to work for me? Are we done with this craziness? You want to work for? Okay, you can have a job over here. And her husband works for her. So she and Jennifer is a very forgiving person who's got many, yes. The answer is yes, that Jennifer has a very big spirit and a lot of kindness. I liked that about the character, that she had to become fierce. She had to make her bones. Like a made man, she had to make her bones. She had to go to Dallas, which really happened. She did really go to Dallas.
Great scene, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I love that scene. And that local actor. We get a lot of great local actors in Boston. Bill Thorpe, has that craggy face. And those are some of my... the framing we also did was a different ambition.
Where was that shot, what was supposed to be Dallas exterior?
We shot it in Worcester and in Haverford. Haverford, is that it? Yeah, Haverhill, Massachusetts. And I'll tell one funny story about Haverhill. So we own the whole street for Dallas. Because what's wonderful about the communities surrounding Boston is they have not changed. So they're like back lots in about 50, 60 years. So that was the same building we shot American Hustle in for Irving Rosenfeld's office, where he and Amy Adams conned all those people. The first office they had was the same building where Jennifer had to go in. We made it a hotel lobby. Judy Becker, the phenomenal Judy Becker, the designer, Michael Wilkinson with his costumes, Lena Sandgren, the editors. I mean, I can't, Shelley Ziegler, my AD, going back 4 movies. I couldn't do it without our team. All these people, I'm so indebted to.
Next question, sir.
How much I was focusing on the bad moments or the good moments? Or? How time feels. Well, okay, I'll say this about the first part of the movie. The first half of the movie feels very different than the second half of the movie. Because in the first half of the movie, she's living in their world. And she's just sort of keeping her head above water in her father's world, in her ex-husband's world, in her children's world. And so it's this craziness with the dreams and the soap opera and the house and the trap that she wakes up. You have magic when you're a child. Many people never hear that magic ever again. I've had many relatives who worked in construction, building the tunnels in New York. I don't know, I don't know what happened to them. Because of work and the adult compromises and disappointments of the grown-up world, it's very difficult sometimes. The adult concerns can really make that magic distant. So that was the question for me, was how she would hold on to that. But at that moment in the movie, it's very far. She can barely hear it, the magic. It's a very distant heartbeat. It might, and that's the first half. The second half starts to become her territory. She starts to own it. It becomes her rhythm of her power,
and
of her quiet
clock
power.
Sound in the musical score is very nice.
Yes, thank you. Beautiful score by
Who
those
did
guys.
that score?
These young guys. We got a whole new young team. We got Wes Thorson, a farmer's son, from the Midwest, who's just like a quiet. He did Blake Mills, who's the producer for the Alabama Shakes, and that's the beautiful singer Brittany Howard, who sings the a cappella version of "I Feel Free," which Eric Clapton sang at the beginning, and at the end she sings it. And the Nat King.
How'd you find these people? They send you a demo tape or something?
Through Sue Jacobs, our beautiful music supervisor.
Right, okay.
And also I forgot to name David Campbell, who's an amazing orchestrator who did that lush score. It was very beautiful. We're down to our last question, I think.
One more question.
Well, it just felt right. Diane Ladd is that presence that was an umbrella. And the real Joy told me that her grandmother was more her mentor, guardian than her mother was. Her mother was like another child to her. So I felt that having that beautiful voice, Diane Ladd has such a beautiful voice, that is so filled with that richness. I felt that it was kind of beautiful. It felt right to have it narrated by a woman of experience and age who had been quiet but strong for her, and who narrates beyond her death. We liked that she narrated beyond her death. We thought that was kind of beautiful.
One final question from me. Bradley Cooper sport coats. Are those from a particular brand, or were those designed for the film? Because they're great, especially the first brown one with the stripes.
Good for you. You know, our conception of the guy from the very beginning was you're going to meet him, you're going to be with Joy, and all the guys are going to be above the frame, right? And she's in the bottom of the frame. And you hear him before you see him. All these guys are talking, and she's like the little girl in the frame looking up at these men. And you see his hand first with his top 10 ring, his Big Ten college football ring. It's like a Michigan ring or a Minnesota ring. And you see his hand. Those guys, whenever I'd see my dad's salesman friends with those rings, I was like, wow. You know, then it's on the table, and you go up his arm. And I always saw him as this guy who had run Kmart from Detroit, who was like a solid guy, a straight shooter, who wore these very Midwest. The Midwest style is very different than the coasts. And that, to me, was very Midwestern, the houndstooth that he wore every day. That was his idea of natty. And we came up with that together with Michael Wilkinson. And I think Michael might have designed those coats that he wore. So thank you for asking.
Send him an email, please, 39 regular.
Okay, all right. I know what to
that
get you
one.
for Christmas. And
Yeah.
because you've been so lovely, I'm going to do it.
Awesome.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Congratulations on
Thank you.
another beautiful film.
Thank you for being such a gentleman.